Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. Man, I've got so much to talk about tonight, and obviously we're going to take your questions. But it's so close to Christmas, and this is going to be our last coffee talk of the year. That's right, because on the normally scheduled late night coffee talk, which would be 2 weeks from now, that's going to be Christmas Day, and I'm not going to be doing this. So just get ready because I promise I'm going to make up for it with an announcement tonight. And I think you guys will be happy about it, especially since so many of you have said, well, I'm about to give a lot of you something you've asked for. So I mean that can't be a bad thing, right? Anyway, like I said, welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is that time where I take a break from the work that I'm doing. I fire up the camera and the microphone, and I take your questions. I talk about whatever is going on in the TNM, what's going on with Texas, what's going on in Texas politics, or frankly, we can talk about whatever you want to because you drive the conversation. I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do that. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, you can be sure to participate in the chat, drop your questions in the chat. And of course, while you're there, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I saw in the comments just a moment ago someone saying that they didn't get the notification for it. Be sure wherever you tune into us, be sure that you have notifications turned on, right? And that includes in the TNM app as well, because we do send out notifications about these on the TNM app. So you can get them right here on your phone, right? So anyway, so do that if you're on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, you might have been a little bit slow today. Meta had a big outage, but be sure to like and share and put your questions down there in the comments and interact with folks. I'll tell you why here in a second. If you're watching on X, which is again this week apparently the number one place for viewers of Late Night Coffee Talk. If you're on either of the accounts that we're streaming on X, be sure to do all the things, right? Give us a like, give us a what do they call it? Repost now? I can't keep up with the new terminology. But open it up, go to chat, drop your questions in the chat, and we'll get to all of them. We're still not able to do them on LinkedIn. That's not our fault. That's LinkedIn's fault because almost no one watches over there, and I don't know a lot of people that go over there to watch live streams, but we're there anyway. All right. So as I was saying a moment ago, one of the things we're doing tonight, and I said this: if you got the email, right? If you received the email that we're doing this, right? We send out an email reminder when we do this. You will see that I said I'm giving away things tonight, right? Because it's so close to Christmas. I'm going to give away some things. And so what you're going to need to do, though, because we're going to randomly draw for those things, something we used to do on here quite often, you're going to just need to comment, right? Normally I would have said, hey, use a certain hashtag or whatever, but here's the bottom line. If you get in YouTube chat or you get into, the Facebook comments or whatever, all you have to do is comment. Just interact with people. Just do that and you'll be entered in and we'll have it. I'll have the random draw right here on the screen when we do it. As I said a moment ago, if you have questions, drop them in YouTube chat, Facebook comments, in the X chat for this live stream, or you can email them too, and it's right there on the screen, coffeetalk@thnm.org. And Kara's doing something tonight. If you're saying hello, she's dropping them on the screen. So be sure to sound off. Tell us where you're watching from tonight, and we'll have a good time with that. All right, so let me just get down to brass tacks. Your questions, and I am fairly certain that you guys are going to have some questions tonight. Let me go ahead and pull up the first one. Okay, this is a long one. Not going to read the whole thing, but this is from Ken, and Ken says, let's see. Trying to figure out where to start. This is very long. It says, I'm sure your group has already gone through all this and researched it fully, but I wanted to bring up a few things. All or most of this is found in the 1868 book called War Between the States. by Alexander Stevens. He wrote it just 3 years after the end of the war. Everything was very fresh. I am not seeing a question, but thank you for that. And I actually own that book. It's called A View, if I remember correctly, a view on the, hang on, is it a constitutional view of the late war between the states? That's one of them. There's several books out there, and somebody has asked that I do an entire podcast where I talk about some of the foundational books that people should read. Maybe it's time we do that, right? But anyway, Ken, I would say thank you for the question, but I haven't found a single question mark in there. But thank you for the comment and the suggestion. It's an old book. I would recommend people read it. Commentaries on the Constitution. That's another one. Let's see. I don't have that one handy, or I would show you guys on the camera. I'm looking at my shelves to see if I can get to it easily. I cannot, but there are several, and if it really is helpful to understand a lot of these older books, particularly the critique of Judge Story's commentaries on the Constitution, the critique on his commentaries on the Constitution. Really, I think, in my mind, helps expose the fundamental differences in the way that the founders and the framers envisioned the union they were setting up, and the people that were almost immediately trying to hijack the thing. I mean, they were trying to absolutely try to consolidate power in Washington, D.C. Among the federal governing class. And I think they're an awful lot like communists in that they told you exactly what they were going to do, and that's what they did. And the fact that for so long that viewpoint was anathema to people who understood what the founders and framers were trying to do, I think really tells you everything that you need to know about who the good guys are in this idea, or this question, or this discussion about how the union is actually constructed. So anyway, thank you for that, Ken. That's a really good one. Okay, let's get down to it. Yeah, you guys, lots of you guys sounding off. I'm loving it. Man, I knew this was coming. So let's go ahead and get to this one real quick. Let's pull some of the names off the screen real quick because I want to show this question. Here we go. This is from Terry. By the way, let me just go ahead and say this. Terry wrote a phenomenal academic paper on the issue of the federal debt, and it is on. It's actually, if you go to the TNM Research Library, if you go to library.tnm.me, we converted it to an article some time ago. But when we launched the library, it was and moved it over to its own site. It was one of the first academic papers that we added. So it's members only, right? So if you're a member of the TNM, you have access to it. But I would suggest going over there and giving it a good read through, because I know some of you have heard, you read the section inside of the Texian book. You heard the subsequent conversations that we had with Dr. Quartrup. You saw the article from Terry, but you got to really read the academic research. But anyway, here's Terry's question. Obvious question. What's your take on the Cook-Phelan brouhaha? I knew that someone was going to ask about the Texas House Speaker's race. And so I'm actually a little bit prepared for this one. But look, I mean, you can see it coming. It's the biggest issue that people are discussing in Texas politics right now. And coffee first, because this is going to be a long one. Let's do this first, Terry. Let's give some background, because there may be some people here that need to get caught up on this. Okay. So let me see how far back we want to rewind the clock. I will. Okay, so let's just do this. Let's give you an overview of sort of how we got to this point and why we and others have talked so much about dysfunction in the Texas House of Representatives for so long. So you go back, I can't even remember how many sessions back when Tom Craddock was the Speaker of the House. He was essentially ousted by a coup where you had a Democrats who were in the minority and a small group of Republicans ousted him as Speaker and appointed Joe Straus as Speaker of the House. Now, I'm not going to recount every single thing about why Joe Straus was so bad for us and our mission and our issues. I've covered it many times before, and honestly, I'm trying to keep it light tonight, and don't want to dredge all that stuff up. But needless to say, Joe Straus was really bad for the T&M and our particular issues, okay, for our mission. And so what you effectively had was you had a lock where, because the speaker gets elected, like it's like one of the first orders of business when the session convenes. And what had essentially happened was you had some people that were ostensibly Republicans, they were wearing the R jersey, get together with all of the Democrats and say, this is the guy that we want. And they got Joe Straus. And I got to tell you, it's almost impossible to get rid of an incumbent speaker. So this coup was a bit of a big deal. And so there was always that knowledge that as long as, there were 12 to 20 Republicans that were willing to side with the Democrats, as long as they could agree on who it was, then it really didn't matter if the Republicans had a majority or not. Yeah, there was a Republican speaker, but effectively Democrats would be in control of who wielded the gavel in the Texas House. And for those who think, well, who cares, right? Aren't they just an umpire? Let me just say that the idea that the Texas Speaker of the House is an unbiased umpire that just sort of plays out the rules, if you believe that, you probably need to go get some oxygen and quit painting in closed rooms, right? I mean, you just got to go get help. You got to go get treatment or fresh air, something along those lines. Because the bottom line is the speaker gets to appoint the committee chairs and the vice chairs and gets to set all the committee appointments. And as long as they can trade those committee chairmanships for allegiance, then those lieutenants will effectively do whatever the speaker wants. And that means when you have something like the calendars committee, which is a massive bottleneck, the joke has always been the calendars committees where conservative bills go to die, because they're the committee that actually determines whether or not, even if a bill makes it through committee, they determine when it hits the floor. And if they slow walk a piece of legislation through calendars, they kill it by the clock. And then it gives cover for these people to go back and say, well, I would have voted for it, but it got, we ran out of time, right? That's their game. Okay. So the speaker has tremendous amount of power. And with Straus, there was absolutely no doubt that they were willing to put their thumb on the scales, to at least Straus was. Okay. So the way they got rid of Straus was the Republican Party implemented this Rule 44 censure. Straus got censured. He got tired of it. He got tired of all the kind of nonsense, and he decided not to run again. But before that, one of the things that took place was there was a movement afoot among the Republicans to say, look, we want to change in the rules. We want to say that the caucus, the Republican caucus, will get together before the session, decide who we want our speaker to be. And when the caucus decides, that person gets put up, and the entire caucus agrees to vote for them. And I remember that fight. That was one heck of a fight to get that rules changed. But again, if you have speakers that are willing to go in there and kind of wheel and deal and do the pledge card thing, I mean, I can't go through all the dysfunction. We'd be here for 3 hours. But The bottom line is it was a change. It was a move in the right direction. And I think David Cook even alluded to this on X when he talked about 47 other states kind of do it this way. Uh, anyway, the rule was in place, but it really didn't make much difference, right? So Straus, Rule 44, he said, I'm not doing this again. So he just didn't run for reelection. They didn't so much oust the speaker as they kind of pushed him to ensure that he was not going to run again. He just said, enough. I don't have to worry about it. I've got this massive war chest and this pack that I created. I don't have to do this crap anymore. Okay. So then you got Dennis Bonnen, who was a chief lieutenant for Joe Straus. And so Bonnen becomes speaker, essentially winds up in a situation where he gets caught on a hidden recording, conspiring with Dustin Burrows, trying to push Michael Quinn Sullivan from Texas Scorecard to start targeting other Republicans, right? To coordinate and collude, showing that these people that had provided loyalty to Bonnen and to Dustin Burrows were about to get attacked by proxy. So much for loyalty, right? So when that recording came out, kudos to MQS and Texas Scorecard for blowing that thing wide open. What you had Bonnen make a decision not to run for re-election. And there were some questions about the legality of what was taking place there because it happened in the speaker's office. And there's not supposed to be any of that sort of stuff taking place on the Capitol grounds. But lo and behold, it did. Texas Rangers investigated. Bonnen was completely cleared, and I think Burrows was. So be it. But Bonnen made the decision not to run again, not just to not run for speaker, just not run for state representative, which again threw it out. And then you had Dade Phelan, who they had been really prepping for this sort of thing. So now you got Dade, who's following in those footsteps. Well, I'm not going to recount all the politics that have happened over the last, couple of years, but I'm sure if any of you guys remember what last session was like, a complete dumpster fire. There was I think an appropriate amount of outrage from the grassroots, right? Saying, look, this is not it. I mean, I can tell you right now, probably no one from either party was happy about what happened, and certainly we weren't. It was horrible for us. Last session was probably one of the worst sessions for us since we started engaging with legislators back in 2009. Okay, so Dade was in trouble. You guys know that David Covey ran against him in the primaries. Dade won in a runoff by only 300 votes, but the damage had been done. And so that leads us into the speaker's fight, right? Dade swore up and down that he was going to continue, even because he won his race, he was going to run as speaker. But all of these guys, because so many of them got knocked out of the box in the primaries, part of what the speaker pledges in return for that loyalty is, I'll protect you in the primaries. Look, I'll help raise money. I've got a big war chest. I'll do those things. And none of that mattered. He couldn't hardly protect himself. I mean, he basically won by the skin of his teeth by 300 votes in a runoff. And a bunch of these guys that were relying on his protection absolutely got destroyed. I mean, they just got blown up. I mean, we've got a nice freshman class coming in, 9 of the freshmen are Texas first pledge signers. And, so there's even more. And you got to understand that most of those people that are coming in as freshmen knocked off an incumbent who thought that Speaker Dade Phelan was going to be able to protect them. And it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. So we're running up against, as we go through this time over, past the primaries, through the general election, after the general election, which those things are foregone conclusions here in Texas, we're running up against what happened December the 7th, which was the meeting for the Republican caucus, where they were going to get together and determine who their nominee was going to be for Speaker of the Texas House. And sliding into this thing, you already had you had David Cook come out. Now there were some things before that. You had Shelby Slauson was angling for it. She'd announced. Tom Oliverson had announced, but a lot of those guys pulled out. They had a meeting even prior to the caucus meeting. These reformers, right? They had a meeting and they said, "Look, we're going to coalesce behind one person. So let's get together and let's figure this out." And they did. And David Cook happened to be the person they coalesced behind. So you got David Cook in here with 47 people that are ready to rock to say, look, we want it, which is, that's a majority. It's a majority of the caucus. But as we're getting closer to December the 7th, the writing becomes much clearer that Dade doesn't have a clear path to become Speaker of the House. He doesn't have a way to angle and get those votes under the caucus rules. So that led into some, late night meetings the day before or a couple days before where Dade finally just said, look, I'm out. I'm not going to do this. You guys work it out. And, word on the street, rumor is that when Dade finally said that he wasn't going to do it, they started, bickering back and forth. Some of his people around him started bickering back and forth about which one of them was going to be the heir apparent. And all I could think of was that scene from the movie about Alexander the Great where he dies and he doesn't leave a successor. And, you essentially have his generals fighting over how they're going to divide up the empire, who's going to succeed him. I mean, you see this all the time when you don't have a succession plan. And I don't think that Dade or any of those guys went into this thing thinking that there was a snowball's chance in hell that Dade was going to lose this thing. I mean, they even hired Rick Perry as a special consultant, former Governor Rick Perry, former Secretary of the Department of Oops at the federal level, who swore up and down that Dade was going to be Speaker. He's making the media rounds. So he pulls out, and now they put Dustin Burrows up. And the caucus meeting, if you have not heard already, went kind of as you expect, as you might expect. That is, if you are more akin to Louisiana politics than Texas politics, right? But essentially what happened, I'll just give you the basics. There were supposed to be initially 4 rounds. The first round ballot, you had to get 2/3. If you had 2/3 and there was anybody who didn't get 2/3, go to a second ballot where 2/3 is the threshold. If nothing after the second ballot, you have 2 more rounds where it's a 3/5. And then after that, it opens it up to the floor. And after the second or third round, when it was clear that Burrows and some of the guys around him were not going to get what they wanted out of that meeting, AKA Dustin Burrows to be the Speaker of the House, they took their bat and their ball and they left. They walked out. And I'm leaving out a lot of things here, right? I'm leaving out just a ton of detail. For example, the fact that Burrows went ahead of time and he was trying to cut deals with, of all things, I mean, I feel like I woke up in the Twilight Zone. The head of the Democrat caucus in the legislature in the Texas House, Gene Wu. I mean, can you even believe it? If I'd have told somebody a year ago that Gene Wu would be the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, you'd have called me a liar. You'd have said I was insane. You would have accused me of painting in a closed room, right? But here it is. The man who believes that the U.S. military should kill every Texiteer with a Hellfire missile is now your head of the House Democrat Caucus. Anyway, so Burrows went and cut deals, and essentially what he was trying to do was make the Straus play. But the problem is that when Straus made his play against Craddock, those caucus rules were not in place. And so when Burrows and his guys decided to leave, they broke the caucus rules. And so in doing so, or I won't say they broke the caucus rules, they just agreed that they didn't work. Maybe, here's what's funny. Maybe a case could be made that Dustin Burrows and Jeff Leach and all those guys seceded from the House Republican caucus. That'd be an interesting case to make. Long story short, after all of that walkout, and he goes and he says, but Burrows says that he has the votes, or that he walks out and he's got the deal with the Democrats, and he's got a little group of Republicans that go with him, the Lacey Hulls and Jared Pattersons of the world. The guy literally goes and has a press conference and says, "I am the speaker elect. I'm it." Right? And it's it was surreal to watch, because he didn't have a majority of the Republican caucus. The caucus rules are very explicit, and if they violate those caucus rules come time to actually vote for the speaker, there are going to be repercussions there. But the bottom line here is that the guy just goes out and announces victory. Yep, it's clear. I have enough votes to be speaker. And it's like, that's not how this works. So it's been hilarious to watch, because Burrows goes out, he puts out, he gets on X, and he's literally sending out invitations to a fundraiser saying that he is the speaker elect Dustin Burrows. I mean, it's like akin to, this is going to date me a bit, but there used to be this whole thing where the people that were insane thought they were Napoleon, right? And that's kind of what it's like, because he's going out and goes, I may not have gotten a majority, I may not have won by any recognized process, but somehow I am speaker elect. And so the funny thing that has come from this has been, now everyone's essentially saying, well, I guess you can just go out and declare yourself as the speaker elect and it's okay, right? I mean, and I guess that means you are. You put it on fundraising invitations, whatever. And I'm going to tell you, this is what it reminds me of.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
No, I'm speaker elect. I mean, next thing, you got Bashar Assad fleeing Syria. Maybe he'll come out and he'll go, I'm president of Syria. I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? This is a weird world we live in. And there is absolutely no doubt that this has been, for whatever reason, the last couple of years have just been crazy. Like, absolutely, you can't write this. You can't write it. And so you have now Dustin Burrows, Spartacus, speaker elect, whatever, essentially getting called out by everybody that's in the caucus. He's being called out by representatives whose name he put on his list that did not agree to support him, both Republican and Democrat. You have him texting out graphics in support, or somebody texting them out in his stead to support him, showing a picture of him and Greg Abbott, insinuating that Abbott has endorsed him for speaker. And you've had, as late as this evening or this afternoon, Governor Greg Abbott coming out and going, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying you should respect the will of the caucus, who a majority of the Republicans supporting the caucus is who should be the speaker nominee, AKA Dustin Burrows. Quit using my picture for your text messages, right? Because everybody who's touching this guy right now is getting massive backlash, because now the only way that he can win is by this deal with the Democrats and a tremendous amount of subterfuge. Their newest tactic is they're going to push, I believe, for the speaker's vote to not be a roll call vote, so that if indeed something happens and, Burrows gets elected along with a small group of Republicans and a coalition of Democrats, then your rep has the ability to come back and say, well, that wasn't me, right? So unless there's a roll call vote and transparency, then any one of these reps who vote for him against the will of the people that sent them there, essentially will have cover. So gonna be super interesting to watch. That's a long story, Terry. But anyway, look, I will tell you this. So let me just go ahead and tell you really quickly, sort of my take. And this comes primarily from some text messages I had with a friend of mine who was asking my take on it. And I get this text message from Dan Roy, and he says, "Man, what's your take on all this?" It's like, look, here's the thing. If Burroughs is anything kind of like what we've had, like Dade or Dennis or Straus, that's problematic for us, right? But if he wins the speakership with a coalition of this small group of Republicans siding with a whole caucus of Democrats, then, in the short term, that is extraordinarily painful for all of us, right? Not just for our mission, but for a lot of things that Texans care about. But in the long term, what that means is that anybody who sides with him gets absolutely obliterated in the next primaries. Because with the new teeth that the convention put in Rule 44, with the push for the Republican Party to have closed primaries and the ability for them under the new Rule 44 censure rules to censure these guys and prevent them from getting access to the Republican primary ballot, they're just going to get obliterated. And so, I look at this short term, long term, and I'm thinking, in the short term, it would be really painful for us to have Dustin Burrows. But in the long term, if Dustin Burrows happens to, shenanigan his way as Speaker of the House, it becomes a path to obliterating the last bit of resistance inside the Texas legislature to the things that are fundamental to our mission. And I'm going to tell you, the who's who of the people that have signed on with him, you will notice a common thread, which is they are just about, to a person, all representatives that absolutely despise us, that hate us with a passion, that despise that are completely antithetical to the mission of the TNM. And so, one side of me says, look, I don't want to have to fight leadership in the House this session. But another part of me says, well, if that's the case, then so be it, because it'll be a flush of the sewer pipes in the next election if that's the case. So, a little from column A, a little from column B, right? Anyway, Terry, thanks for your question. That was a very long answer, but I appreciate you sending it in. All right, let's get over here and let's pick up another one. I like this one. This is from Regina. By the way, this is Regina, our membership director. It's be a good time for me to remind you, if you are not already a member of the Texas Nationalist movement, do it now, right? Head over to tnm.me/join and become a member today, or go to member.tnm.me. Either way will get you there, but become a member today. $4, like $4. 1, 2, 3, 4. $4, right? How much is independence worth to you? If it ain't worth $4, then it's worth nothing, right? But this question's from Regina. She says, what do you think of Briscoe Cain's HB 274 that suggests the state of Texas should govern the city of Austin? I think this is like the third or fourth time he's tried to push it. Yeah, it's actually interesting. This is not the first time, but from what I can recall about what I think spurred Briscoe to do this was some of the shenanigans that were happening with Austin and the Austin City Council, the homeless camping issue, the homeless issue, how they have effectively defunded and hogtied the police there. So crime is at an all-time high. It's it's a bit of a mess in Austin. And, but I think it really and truly has a lot of its roots in some of the issues that go back several sessions that I'm personally aware of, where you've had the state pass a law that says one thing, and then you've had the cities that go in and try to do something else. And they go, well, look, we're home rule cities, right? We can kind of do whatever. For example, I know one of them was the texting while driving ordinances that were being passed. A lot of these cities were passing extremely strict rules about electronic devices while you're driving, and not commenting one way or the other on that particular issue. But the problem was you wound up from city to city having a patchwork of statutes, or not really statutes, but of ordinances that deal with that particular issue. And so the state would come out and they would set guidelines, and the cities would come in and go, well, so what if you set guidelines? Ours are more stringent than yours, so we at least meet the standard or the burden, and we have exceeded it, which is okay. Then you had the battle over the sanctuary cities, where you had some of these urban areas claim that they were going to start being sanctuary cities. And the legislature had to come in and clamp down on that. So that was a lot of the root of it, the state versus the federal power. And just like we have state versus federal power, you had the cities essentially saying, look, it's no different when then, Attorney General Abbott goes and sues the federal government. That's no different than what the cities are doing. But there is a big fundamental difference in that cities are creations of the state. The states are not creations of the federal government. So cities, like school districts, are political subdivisions of the state. And so they should be reflective. Now, this gets into a whole debate and discussion about local control, right? How much local control should you have? And do we want the state coming in and homogenizing everything? Well, probably not. But you at least have to have some standards. And when you have these cities, like what's happening in Austin, going off the rails with a lot of the things that are going that are completely contrary to what everybody else doing, and frankly, contrary to common sense. It's understandable why Briscoe would go in there and file this piece of legislation to essentially say, look, you're screwing your city up. You're a political subdivision of the state of Texas. You are not a Greek city state, from ancient times. And so therefore you're going to follow these standards. I have suggested, particularly after what happened many years ago in Crystal City, that the state adopt a policy very similar to what they have with the school districts, right? Which is, look, here are the measures, here are the benchmarks, here are the minimums. If you can't meet them, then we're going to come in and we're going to effectively take it over until we get the ship right, and then we'll pitch you the keys back. Some people may find that controversial, but like you had an incident where you had rampant corruption, I believe, in Crystal City. And to the point, I think Max Stalling wrote the song Topaz City. I don't think it was about that, but it was about Crystal City. But I mean, you had like city council or mayors and, city officials arrested. I mean, they were part of these corruption investigations. And I mean, it was basically the city had ceased to function properly. They were not following the rules, and it didn't matter. Even though you could turn it over to a Democratic vote, these guys had such a hold on everything that it was just not going to end. And so, unlike school districts, there is no mechanism to do that for other political subdivisions. And I've advocated on a personal level before for that sort of thing to apply. I think Briscoe's measure is something that is probably a pretty good idea. Austin is the capital city of Texas. And if Austin can't govern itself to the point that you can't walk down the sidewalk without stepping in human feces, then probably something different needs to take place there. So anyway, thanks for that question, Regina. Appreciate that. Okay. Hey, a quick reminder, there it is at the bottom of the screen, right? You can email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org, or you can drop them in the chat on YouTube, in the comments on Facebook, or in the chat on X. They will pop up over here. And a reminder, we are indeed having drawings, doing giveaways, folks. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, and all you have to do is comment, right? You just go over there and comment, and you get entered in. So all you have to do is go pop a comment in. So here's the deal. I'm gonna take one more question. I'm gonna give all of you newcomers an opportunity to go drop comments in there to get entries, and then I'm gonna draw as soon as I answer this question. Okay, this is not. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a question, right? It's got a question mark in it. I like that. It says road trip. Bus trips to Austin in January. Maybe. I mean, you're going to get lots of things that we're going to need you to do, right? Which is why every one of you needs to be sure that you have registered your support. You're getting our emails. If you're not, check your spam folder, because you're probably getting our emails and they're probably getting sent straight to spam. So be sure to check your spam folders. But download the TNM app. We'll send push notifications. You can be part of TNM Social. We send things over there, so that way we can bypass the censorship. But let me just, it's going to give me a good opportunity to talk about this. So I'm going to tell you that we get this a lot, right? And a lot of people who talk about, look, you need to have a rally on the opening day of the legislative session, guys. The real work, the real things that make an impact happen in your district right now, and in the Capitol, inside the Capitol, on days that are not on the opening day, right? Your ability to have a meaningful interaction with legislators on the opening day of the legislative session is virtually non-existent, because it's all pomp and circumstance, right? You got speeches that have to be given. You got a speaker's vote you have all these things that go on, all the normal ceremony of the gaveling in of the session. Not a great time. And as someone who, I think there's a picture that you guys have probably seen in that slideshow that we do right at the very beginning of this thing. There are many of us that have been there on opening day, in the rain and the cold, on the the south steps of the Capitol or the north steps of the Capitol, catching pneumonia, that can attest to that fact, right? It's just the way that it is. The real work is done inside the Capitol by you, when you can have meaningful interactions with your legislators. So you got to stay in touch, got to allow us to communicate with you. You got to stay on top of these things, and we'll guide you and direct you on what you need to do. All right, so let's do this. Let's do, I think some of you have already done this. Okay, let's see here. Yes, all right. So let's figure out who wants TNM. Let's do a TNM flag first, right? This is a TNM flag. It's got the TNM logo on it. Nice blue flag. You guys will dig this. So let's do this one. Now here's the deal. I'm gonna pull this thing up. I'm gonna let it do its magic. But whoever it is, whoever the winner is, be sure to drop your information, your shipping information. Send it via email to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. Okay. All right. Let's do this. There we go. We got our winner. So there you go, on YouTube, of all things. So you got the flag. Congratulations to you. Be sure to drop your information, your shipping information, to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. You will see the address down at the bottom of the screen. And we'll do another one of those here in just a minute. I want to get to another question. Boom. All right. Congratulations. Everybody congratulate them. Okay. Let's get down to it. All right. So here's a question. I'm not sure about this. It says, I'm not sure how long ago the Dr. Phil thing happened, but did that give you any pause? Okay, so we know, for those of you who haven't seen, I was interviewed on Dr. Phil Primetime. I was there along with Carla Garrick from the NH Exit Now, right, from New Hampshire. I was on there with Dan Goldvach, who lost his son to effectively these illegal immigration policies that are just absolutely horrible. And Dan was there to talk about why he joined our movement. I don't know why it would give me any pause, or, as far as what the Dr. Phil thing happened. I'm not really sure how to take that question, but it was definitely something that was pretty spectacular for us earlier this year. And I'm kind of half expecting a follow-up phone call from them sooner rather than later. I've talked about it before. Phil was really nice off camera. He was pretty fair-minded, I think, during. But, the fact that he was doing something about our movement at all, I think was huge in and of itself. So I would suggest going and taking a look at some of the articles on news.tnm.me. There's tons of news articles, and I think there's somebody who wrote an op-ed. But again, if you can clarify your question, go ahead and drop it in there. I'd be willing to take another look at it. Okay. Okay, this is a good one. Dell says, maybe a quick summary of the status and priorities of the TNM plans right now. Yeah, look, our stuff is clockwork, right? So I'll show you this graphic. I've showed it at the last, I think, 4 coffee talks, but look, it's super important. Hang on, let me pull this off the screen real quick so you can see. But look, for those who don't understand what Texit is, it's that part in the middle, right? It's the process. I'm not going to go through this again. Go back and watch it. And by the way, TNM insiders, you're about to get a really cool gift too. But the Texit issue, right? It's the process that stands between the status quo and us becoming politically, culturally, and economically independent and self-governing. Okay, so important thing to understand. And so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I can't give you the entire Texit blueprint tonight, but what I can do is I can tell you. Let me get your question back up there. We're bound, and I talk about this actually in the Texit book. Is we're somewhat bound by the calendar, right? We have a part-time legislature that meets for 140 days every other year. And so when the legislative session ends, all the stuff that happens before that begins to bear fruit. And so we had this whole track record of the last 2 years that is beginning to bloom, right? It's about to be prime time for us, because one of the milestones in the Texit process is a referendum. And to have a referendum, to win one, to be able to vote on it, you have to get the thing in the first place. And that happens through the Texas legislature, which is why we have the Texas Independence Referendum Act. So, the bottom line is, if you're talking about a summary of the status, we're really doing, for us, it's about 2 parts of this process, right? There's 4 parts. Can't believe I'm about to give you a summary of the blueprint. But here are the 4 parts. It's building capacity, it's getting the vote, it's winning the vote, and then it's securing the independence, right? Those are the 4 steps. And people have heard me talk before about during that process, after the vote, we have constitutional issues, statutory issues, international covenants, treaties and agreements, and negotiated issues, okay? Those sit there in securing Texas. Those reside firmly in that fourth step. But capacity building, that first part, is essentially us building the capacity necessary to bring the political pressure to get the vote, and then utilizing that same capacity building to win the vote. And if you don't think that we have to be organized, understand that disorganization, right? If you don't have people that are willing to organize and talk with one another and go out and do outreach and do all those things that are normal to retail politics, if anybody tells you that you can secure independence without doing those things, they too are painting in a closed room, right? They need to go for some fresh air or for some treatment at a treatment facility, because it just is not the way that it works. So you got to do the work. And so our focus, right, if you want a quick summary of the status, look, capacity building is going phenomenally for us. I mean, we've been going through a year-long restructure of what is essentially the field organization and shifting over to counties. And we just picked up, I think we're organizing in, I think it was 3 more or 4 more. 4 more. We added 3 this morning and 1 yesterday, where we're actively organizing those counties. So we're knocking on about 60, which those 60 population wise cover, I think we're 73% of the voting population of Texas. So, I mean, it's pretty substantial, but we're making tremendous progress on the international engagement front, right? Where we are setting the criteria, organizing, helping. You're seeing more independence movements pop up. You're seeing them become more professionalized. We literally just had someone representing some other people in a state to the north that want our help, want us to guide and consult to help them get organized like we are here. Okay, so that's going well. Obviously, governmental engagement is getting ready to rock and roll for the legislative session. You're going to be getting an email soon looking for people to help out as volunteer legislative advocates. Our tech department's done a phenomenal job getting everything prepared where that's concerned. You guys are about to have more tools at your disposal for interacting with the legislature than you have ever had, and it's just phenomenal. So, look, across the board, we're doing really well. Now, if you want to know where we're not doing so great, fundraising has been abysmal. We just came out of an election cycle where you had all these people run, and I mean, there was more money floating around in this election cycle than you could possibly imagine, but it was all getting sucked into a lot of these federal races. And here we are, the tail end of the year when it's already bad for fundraising. But I mean, we're finding it, we're having to make choices right now about what major things are we not going to do come this legislative session that we know we need to do, but we just simply will not have the resources to do it unless you guys come through. Because I got to tell you, thank you to everyone who donated prior to the November election for that particular campaign or prior to the pre-filing for legislation. But we didn't hit our targets. And if we don't hit our goals, then we have to start making hard decisions. And when we have to start making hard decisions, that slows down the process. That means that's, one batch of text messages that won't go out, or that's one set of literature that won't go to legislators, or that's one email that you won't get, or I mean that those things matter. And so I'm just going to encourage you guys. I know it's the Christmas season. I know it's been economically tough on everyone, but look, $5, $10, something. Go dig in your couch cushions. When we've got membership at $4 a month, there's just no reason. Everyone can give something. I do. I mean, I get a fundraising email from the organization. I go give. And so, this is one of the things. If you want to know where we're hurting the most, is we're hurting in resources the most, and we need everybody to participate. But Other than that, our priorities are as they are. We continue to do the two things. It's capacity building, aka expanding the T&M and organizing in the field out there in your local communities and your counties, which you can go see the progress, local.tnm.me. You can go see the map there. And then, of course, gearing up for the legislative session. I mean, it's happening right. And just so you know, those conversations are happening now. We're not waiting for the gavel. We've been having these conversations all along, really since the end of the last session. It doesn't stop for us. While other people think they can take a break, it doesn't stop for us. We have to keep going until we get what we do. We can't lose momentum. So anyway, Dale, thank you for that. All right, let's get through some of these. Let me go over here real quick and check this one spot. Okay. Superb. All right, we got a few more. Jude says, or AKA Russell, I'm not sure which one you want to be called by. Okay. Would a successful Doge delay Texas? So, excuse me, I think that this question is about the proposed Department of Government Efficiency and the effort by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to downsize the government, right, or whatever. Will that delay Texas? I don't think it's going to delay Texas. I think it's going to expose. Let me just put it this way. There is no doubt in my mind that the efforts that are happening with Doge, right, the Department of Government Efficiency, and those efforts to scale back and make government more efficient are going to expose more of the fundamental weaknesses in the federal system. When you try to rip out a plant by the roots, you begin to see these sorts of things. And I think what they're going to see is, as they go to prune the tree, they're going to see that the rot goes all the way to the roots. And they, I think, are severely underestimating the power and the scope of the federal bureaucracy that exists among the federal civil service. I could be wrong, but do I think it's going to delay Texas? No, because Texas is happening right now. Remember, Texas is not an act. Texas is the process that gets us to independence. And so there is no delaying Texas because it is already happening. That process is already happening. While they're doing what they're doing, we're going to continue to work to get you guys a vote on this issue, but we're also going to go out there and advocate for policies and positions that move Texas closer toward independence. Any ways that we can close that gap when it comes time after the vote to do the things necessary to secure our independence. I would rather jump over a crack in the sidewalk than jump over a bar ditch. Okay. And so that's what we're trying to do is continue to close that gap. But let's be honest, at any given time, as things accelerate, we get the vote, we win the vote, we can close that gap very rapidly because the gap is just simply not that wide. Okay. All right. Let me do this. Let's get you guys something else, right? All right. So, looking for that email. Hopefully, Kara, you made a note of who that is, but we're going to get to the next one, which honestly is kind of cool, man. It's a full-blown T&M Texas sticker and koozie pack. That thing's pretty awesome. Hang on. Let me remove that bad boy. So, I mean, it's the whole bundle. It's the bundle of all the stuff that we have, right? So let's do this. Let's go ahead and pull for a winner. Let's draw again. Here we go. Who do we have? Look at that. Travis McQueen. Hey, I recognize that name and that picture. Look at Travis there with Ron Paul. That's so cool. All right, congratulations, Travis. You got the pack. Good work, kiddo. Way to be awesome in the random draw category. Okay. Hey, look, I'm overtime. I'm gonna look down here at Kara Square. Is it okay if we go a little bit overtime? You could say you can nod. Okay. All right, because we got a few more questions. So let's get to these bad boys. Look at this. You guys are getting overtime tonight. I'm feeling quite generous and in the Christmas spirit. Okay. So here we go. Jeffrey Hart says, quick question, please. After Texit, what is the plan regarding ongoing federal DOJ, FBI, et cetera, investigations in Texas? I've actually covered this somewhat before because people have asked, about law enforcement. They've asked about various, criminal justice issues. And here's the bottom line. That will all be completely dependent upon negotiated issues. But make no mistake about it. Once Texas is the Texas process is complete, Texas stands as a self-governing independent nation among nations with all of our sovereign rights. And so anything related to the Department of Justice or the FBI becomes essentially foreign. It would be like if Interpol would participate, or the Metropolitan Police in the UK, right? I mean, it's they become, that's how they are in relation to us. And so it is, that participation is to whatever extent Texas allows. And as a sovereign independent nation, think about it in those terms. How would Texas deal with, say, a criminal investigation for the Metropolitan Police in the UK, right? Or with Interpol, or with some other foreign agency, law enforcement agency? Would there be cooperation, and to what extent? They would have no powers here, but what would that cooperation be? So you have to begin to think in those terms, right? What would it look like? Well, think about right now, how any other foreign nation was. Well, essentially, that's what the United States federal government becomes to Texas. When Texas becomes an independent nation, they become no different than Mexico or Canada or France or Germany or China or Australia or any of those other people. They are foreign to us. And so whatever cooperation exists, it exists as a byproduct of whatever we decide we want, the kind of relationship that we want with them. So that is a good question. Thank you for that. Okay, let's take one more look over here, because I've got to get, I do, even though we are doing a little overtime, I do have to wrap up. I got to get back to work. Okay, Cade says, how do you propose Texas be free in light of DeLima v. Bidwell? I am not familiar with that off the top of my head, but I put this up here so we could make a note and go back and see if we can't get you an answer to that. So thanks for your question. All right, let's take a look over here. Sorry, I had to look. I'm insanely curious. Yeah, I'm gonna review that and get back, because I know the case you're referring to, but I will get you an answer. And frankly, here's probably what I'm going to do, Cade. I will probably, because that's going to be a nice detailed question to answer, I think I may just write it as an analysis and put it on the TNM News website. Okay, let's get down to the final question before I get to announcements and everything else. Chris says, hey, so how are we going to become independent? Are we going to have to go to war, or can we peacefully gain independence? Our choice is peaceful and democratic. We have chosen the path laid out in Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, which says that all political powers are inherent in the people, and it also says that the people have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. So we've chosen the path that is laid out in Article 1, Section 2, which is you have to hear from the people, right? And so this is why we fight so hard for a referendum on Texas independence, because we want the people to be able to make that decision, up or down. Should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation? That's the question we want to put to the people of Texas, and let the people of Texas speak on this issue. And when they compare the way things are with the federal system and the opportunities that exist for prosperity and freedom on the other side of us gaining independence, I feel pretty confident in what the people of Texas are going to choose, right? So, this idea somehow that this is some violent revolution is really just apocalyptic pornography for degenerate minds, right? Those, and I mentioned Gene Wu, the head of the House Democrat caucus earlier, talking about, the military coming in here and killing Texiteers with Hellfire missiles or whatever. That's the degeneracy of their minds. That's how twisted and weird and perverted they are, right? They are no different than some third world tin pot dictator that would gas or napalm their own people, right? That's how people like that think. But really, that all exists in their mind, because we know from polling, when it comes down to brass tacks about states suffering any repercussions for leaving the Union, they always effectively chicken out. And we know that, those that are in power, the powers that be, know that the real hold on the people is the bluff, because there is no iron fist behind it, because at any moment that they threaten violence against people who have done nothing but act peacefully and democratically here and voted for their self-determination, like, so many others have done around the world, they know that once that thread is pulled, the entire illusion unravels. And I've said it time and time again, when people fearmonger and say that, if Texas leaves, the United States will come in, they'll carpet bomb Houston. I talked about that. Speaking of the Dr. Phil thing, I talked about that on Dr. Phil, and Phil told me it wasn't fair. And it's like, it's totally fair. It's far more fair to characterize their position as that than how they have mischaracterized our position on so many things. But the fact of the matter is true, is that if the federal government were to take action against Texans who peacefully went to the polls and voted for their independence, everything for them would unravel. And if you don't believe me, go over to the news site, go to news.tnm.me, go look in the analysis section, and wrote this whole dissertation about how it's just virtually impossible for them to do it. I mean, it's long. So I'm going to tell you, go pour you a cup of coffee, settle in and get ready for a long read. But the bottom line is, it forever and always debunks this idea that somehow independence leads to them bombing us into oblivion. It's just not true. So we're pursuing the path that's laid out for us in the Texas Constitution. We're going out, we're engaging the people of Texas. We are getting a law passed that will give Texans a referendum on this issue. We're letting the people of Texas vote on this issue. And then when the people have expressed their will, we're going to ensure that that mandate is followed. That's how it works. I could talk about a lot of things tonight. I mean, if this was going to be a 2-hour shindig, I could talk about the new polling figures when everybody pronounced the Scottish independence referendum dead for the mistakes that they made that I highlighted in the Texit book. When everybody pronounced them dead after their 2014 referendum failed, I said, hey, don't count them out. It's going to happen again. They're going to get it. They're going to figure out that they have to untether the policies of the Scottish National Party from the issue of independence and let the people rally around the issue of independence. Lo and behold, that's exactly what's happening. The SNP had a little minor implosion over there, but now you've got other pro-independence parties that are popping up, and they released a poll and a survey the other day showing that 54% is the support level overall for independence in Scotland right now. In other words, if they go to another ballot, they're going to win, which reinforces what Dr. Quartrip told the news back in 2014, which is any country that has a referendum on independence and it fails the first time, almost in every case, with the exception of I think 2 or 3, within 10 years they have another one and it wins. Right? So statistically, the odds are in your favor if you have an independence referendum that you win it. Okay, whether now or later, it happens. But anyway, that I digress. I mean, I could talk about that all day long. I could have talked about the state senator in New York who's saying that New York should withdraw, and I could talk about Dr. Naylor. I could talk about all those things. But understand, all of these people, we're all speaking the same language, which is the language of self-determination. We want the people, our people, to decide how we are governed. And that includes choosing whether or not to stay in a continued abusive relationship with the federal government or to become a self-governing independent nation and go out there and join the nations of the world, much like Sam Houston said that we would do. Right? So, don't let anybody snooker you into this whole bloody violent revolution nonsense, because that's not what this is. Now, I will tell you, the federal government would love nothing more than that, because you do that and it gives them all the pretext they need to be able to come in and do really nasty and dirty things and claim the moral high ground. So what do? We go out, we advocate for this peacefully, politically, legislatively. We grow, we build capacity, we get the vote, we win the vote, and then we secure our independence, and then we win. And then we all get to breathe air in a self-governing independent nation of Texas. I mean, you got to love that. That's the allure for me. I had somebody email in a last second question about, so, let me just decipher, because there was a lot in there, but they asked about, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, giving a whole answer, but they wanted to know, very similar to the Doge question, if we were going to lose support because Trump got elected. And I think I covered this a couple of coffee talks back, and and fundamentally, it's just because people don't understand what this is. When Texas nationalists close their eyes and envision the future, what they envision is one flag flying over the Texas Capitol. They envision this flag back here, right? This flag right here, lined up and down, the main street in every city. They envision Texans that love Texas, but love their inalienable inherent rights, that believe in the rule of law, that believe in a constitutional republic, that they have the opportunity to open a business and do it without government interference and having to get a complimentary colonoscopy once a year, of your business accounts, and having to have your property taken away if you don't pay rent to the master, or basically have everything taken away if you don't pay the revenuers what they say they're owed. This is what we see. We see a place where our children grow up. We see where families are strong, where individuals are free and independent, where communities are safe and together, and we see Texas as a nation. And that's what I think a lot of the outsiders don't get is, I mean, they deal in sort of the world of politics, this shadowy world of people with facades and masks, and you got to say this thing the right way, and you got to dress a certain way, and you got to have a certain look, and what they never run into are ordinary people that are true believers in a cause, that firmly, with every fiber of their being, believe in Texas as a self-governing independent nation. They don't run into those kind of people. They run into people whose foundations are really no more than shifting sand that just change with the whims of the day. But for us, the issue of Texas independence and Texas nationhood is as hard as this table right here. It's real for us. The grievances are real, but that's beside the point. The reality for us is not that we're just trying to run away from these grievances, is that we see Texas as a real self-governing independent nation, and we're working to make it happen. And so, you may have somebody flake off once in a while who joins the organization, who joins the movement, says, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Texas Nationalist until something else shiny comes along. That crap happens. I mean, it happens. But you find it far less here than you do elsewhere, because our organization is called the Texas Nationalist Movement for a reason. It is an organization made up of Texas nationalists and not just tourists. This is not a position of convenience that you adopt. It's something that you truly believe with every fiber of your being. And so this is why I look at these people and try to help them understand, look, if you think that we're going to have some sort of high attrition rate because of, whoever is, now receiving their mail at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you just don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know us. You never have. Maybe one day you will. Maybe one day you will share that same vision and same belief, and it will permeate every fiber of your being, so that when you wake up every morning and you put your feet on the floor, what you're going to do, what your mission is. Maybe one day. But if you think that the occupants in Washington, D.C. change our level of support, then that day ain't today, right? Okay, one last one. So we did that. All right, okay, let's do this one. You guys want this bad boy? You may have seen our folks carrying these around, brand new, right out of the box. I promise this did not come out of my cabinet, but many of you have asked for these. And so now is your chance to win one. And it is now your time. So let's do this. Here we go. Last winner of the night. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? I'm going to tell you, if it's one of you guys that already have one of these, Travis, you can't win twice, buddy. I'm sorry. Can't win twice. Drawn again. Here we go. Who's it going to be? Phil Berkelbach. Look at you, sir. Phil, you are the lucky winner, sir. Be sure to, all of you that have won tonight, be sure to drop your shipping information so we can get this out to you before Christmas. Be sure to send it over to coffeetalk@thnm.org, and we'll get that stuff squared away. And to you, Ricky Tick, man, that's cool. I dig doing the giveaways. It's a lot of fun, and I think we'll do it again. All right. Well, here's what we got to do, folks, because we are wrapping this bad boy up tonight. You guys have been very good chatters and lots of great questions. Lots of room to talk. So here's some things that you need to know. Number one, I said all of our Texit Insiders are going to get a gift. So if you are a Texit Insider member, tonight, I'm going to let you know you are about to receive access to the full video course from the Texit Blueprint. So you guys remember, we did Greenville, we did Lufkin. They were ticketed events. I got crap for them being ticketed events, but tough. That guy, if you don't like it, come pay for the hotel rooms, right? And all the crap that we have to hump around, right? But the bottom line is they're ticketed events. They were fundraisers for the organization, and we appreciate everybody who did that. But the first one that we did in Greenville at the beautiful Texas Theater was committed to video. Our video team, Will Casey and Carol Casey, they were there, and they shot the video. It's all mixed down, and it resides as a course in the TNM Academy. And I think pretty quickly, in a day or two, everybody who is a TNM Insider member or Texit Insider or TNM Insider member, you are going to be enrolled in that, and you're going to get full access to the entire Texit Blueprint all day, including the Brexit movie that's in there. So Get ready for that. And if you were not a Texan Insider or TNM Insider member, head over to tnm.me/join and become a member today. The Texas Insider membership, TNM Insider membership. I keep calling it one or the other. I can't remember. I have one of those, but I can't remember that. Anyway, long story short, if you're an insider, you're going to get access to it that you can access 24/7. Take it at your own pace. But if you've ever wanted to see me stand on a stage and pace like a panther for, God, it felt like 8 hours, whatever it was, you're going to get your opportunity. But even more so, you're going to get to learn the intricacies of where this is headed, the blueprint, how we intend to make Texas a reality. Yes, so congratulations, insiders. You're going to get that. And second, I have heard you, and I know many of you have asked to do this, and I will tell you that for about a year, it's been almost impossible to do. But you got to make time for what matters. And what you guys have said you wanted was what we're doing here tonight, but you wanted it back to the way that it was a couple of years ago, which is on a weekly basis. So I'm going to tell you that I'm announcing tonight that after the first of the year, Late Night Coffee Talk is going to return. We're going to be weekly again. Instead of twice a month, we're going to go back to every week. So you're going to get a healthy dose, not just of your questions, but we're going to use it to announce some things. And look, that's going to join the Texas News Podcast, which is getting ready to return. We've got episodes of the can getting ready to drop. You're getting ready to see the return of the Texan Accelerator. Our organizational development guys over there have said that they want to do the Texan Accelerator. You're about to see a lot more video content as well beyond the Texas News Podcast. There is a lot happening on the communications front, and I'm super excited. But for tonight, I'm here to tell you that you're getting Late Night Coffee Talk, and you're going to get it weekly after the first of the year. So I'll be at your beck and call, and I'll have my coffee. And yeah, and I'm seeing in the chat here. I'll even pop it up there. I have trouble remembering which Wednesday we are on. Yeah, and that's part of the issue is we want to make it reliable for you guys. Now understand that sometimes may have to skip or may have to do it from the road, but we are going to do it. And I will tell you that I've gotten a lot of feedback that we perhaps need to change the day from Wednesday to another day of the week. So I'm still collecting feedback on that. We did a survey on TNM Social, and a lot of you folks said that you wanted it on Wednesday, but we're hearing some differing opinions from other platforms. So pick your poison. I'm not going to say we're going to do whatever you suggest. We still have things we have to work around here, but we are going to do it weekly. That will be on the schedule. So. All right. Well, friends, that is what we call a wrap for the final Late Night Coffee Talk of the year. Now, we will, like we pretty much do every year, we will do a live stream either right before New Year's or right after, which is going to be a recap of the year. Be sure you're getting our emails. We'll let you know when that's going to be. It's always fun because we get to recap a lot of what happened over the last year. We bring on special guests. It's always a fun time. Get to reminisce about what happened over the year. Get to celebrate successes. Get to care for each other over the losses that we had. And more than that, we get a chance together to look forward to what we're going to do in the year to come. So. But be sure you're receiving emails so you don't miss that. But look, if you're sick of me reminding you to check your spam folder, or if you're sick of checking your spam folder, then what you need to do is download the TNM mobile app, right? Head over to tnm.me/app right now and download it for either Android or iOS and get it on your phone, get logged in, same login you use for the website. The only way you have access is if you're a registered supporter. And if you haven't done that yet, then you need to make sure you go do that. Go register your support at tnm.me/vote and, do the thing, right? If you're waiting, or if you're a secret agent, understand that independence movements are not won by secret agents. If all political power is inherent in the people and you're one of the people, but you don't show your power, then what good is it to have it, right? All right. And of course, look, if what I said before made any difference whatsoever about getting us properly resourced, look, it's important. I can't tell you how important it is. We have expenses out the wazoo, a lot of unanticipated expenses, and we need your help. So head over to donate.tnm.me. If you want to help us secure Texas independence, get that vote and then win that vote. That is one way that you can make that happen. And I mentioned this before, donations count toward membership credit, right? So if you go donate and you make a donation, that actually goes toward credit for memberships. So you'll see how that works, right? And then I did mention this before. If you are a business owner and are a TNM supporter, then absolutely you need to head over to the TNM business directory. You go to business.tnm.me, register your business. The business directory is launched. Beyond this, we haven't done the official big kind of rollout. So there is still time for you to get registered. We're going to keep registration open all the time. But we really want to do a big blowout when we get ready to officially launch it. So be sure to, if you're a business owner, head over there and register your business today. All right, my friends. Well, guess what? That is a wrap. Wow, supersized edition of Late Night Coffee Talk. And look, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you guys how much I appreciate you. I mean, I know I did this during 2 weeks ago for the Thanksgiving one, and I told you how thankful I was for all of you. But I really can't express enough how much you guys mean to me, right? And I don't mean this in relation to being president of the TNM, but I mean as a person, as someone who has really dedicated his entire life to trying to make Texas become a self-governing independent nation. You guys that are part of this are more than just sort of associates or colleagues. We're together. We share a commonality that it's very difficult for other people to understand. And as someone who has felt more than once in the early days, as someone who was tilting at windmills, your presence and your support and the sacrifices that you make and just you being a part of this movement means something to me on a whole different level than it may mean to someone else. And so I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all very much. You mean a lot. Oh man, I can't get mushy. This is supposed to be light and I made it heavy at the tail end. Well, then let's do this. Let's do this. Let me play this for you as we go out. Don't go anywhere because this is coming up, but I'm going to end it a little differently tonight, but I am going to say the thing I always say, which is this. I'm going to leave you with the words of Sam Houston when he said this: Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Merry Christmas, folks, and Happy New Year to all my Texians.
Draw a line and cross the sand, restore freedom once more. Vote in Texas.